"Get out of that chair! You don't belong here!" The words exploded through the courtroom like a gunshot. It wasn't just noise, it was venom. A white police officer, his badge glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights, stood pointing his finger like a weapon at the black woman who wore the robe of authority. Judge Maya Richardson froze for a moment, her gavel raised mid-air. Gasps erupted across the gallery. Reporters scrambled for their pens. The jury looked on in shock. And then, like gasoline on fire, the accusation followed. "This judge is a thief!" But before we continue, pause right here. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and comment where you're watching from. Because what you are about to hear is not just another courtroom drama. This is the story of power, prejudice, and the moment a system tried to strip a woman of her dignity, only to expose its own corruption. Now let's begin. Maya Richardson was not supposed to be here. Not in this chair, not in this robe, not in this seat of power. Born on the south side of Chicago, she came into the world in a neighborhood where dreams were rationed like bread and opportunity was a word spoken, but rarely lived. Her mother worked double shifts as a nurse. Her father hauled freight at the docks. Books were her escape. She devoured them in the small hours of the night, the hum of city sirens outside her window serving as background music to her hunger for knowledge. In school, teachers whispered that she was promising, but classmates teased her for always raising her hand, always asking questions. They didn't see the spark in her eyes when she flipped through law books in the local library. They didn't understand why she stayed up late writing essays about justice, equality, and fairness, while others dreamed of getting out by any means necessary. She wasn't just chasing grades. She was chasing a seat at a table where people like her were never invited. College was war. Professors underestimated her. Peers questioned her place. She heard it all. Affirmative action got you here. You're only in this class because of quotas. Each insult became fuel. When others partied, she studied. When doors closed, she found windows. When scholarships ran dry, she worked 2 jobs. And when her first law firm refused to put her on a major case, she built her reputation defending those no one else would. Single mothers fighting eviction, teenagers unfairly profiled, families crushed under a system designed to ignore them. Year after year, ruling after ruling, Maya's name became known, not just as a lawyer, but as a voice. And when the day came for her to sit on the bench, she carried into that courtroom not just her own ambition, but the weight of generations told they could never rise this high. The day of the accusation was supposed to be routine. The case in front of her was tense, but straightforward. A white officer accused of excessive force during an arrest. The evidence was strong, the jury restless, the press eager for headlines. Judge Richardson presided with her usual calm. Her robe hung heavy, her eyes sharp, her gavel steady. But then came Officer Daniel Callahan, arrogant, broad-shouldered, a man who wore his badge not as a responsibility, but as a weapon. He had been on the force for years, collecting complaints like souvenirs, each buried under bureaucracy, each washed away by the loyalty of fellow officers. To him, a black woman in authority was not just unusual, it was intolerable. And so, in front of the jury, the press, the gallery, he struck. He didn't wait for whispers in hallways or rumors in break rooms. He wanted spectacle. He wanted humiliation. He wanted her destroyed. His voice rang through the court, accusing her of theft, claiming she had stolen critical files, tampered with evidence, compromised the very case she was presiding over. The air froze. Jurors leaned forward. The clerk dropped her pen. Lawyers exchanged shocked glances. Reporters' eyes lit up with the promise of scandal. For a moment, Maya's heart pounded so loud she could hear nothing else. a black judge accused of corruption in her own courtroom by a white officer. History had taught her what this moment could mean. One false step and decades of work would collapse. But Maya did not rise in panic. She rose in strength. Her voice was steady, her eyes unflinching. She asked for the evidence. And that was the beginning of Callahan's fall. The courtroom became a battlefield. Attorneys demanded proof. The clerk brought forward records. Surveillance tapes were played. Each claim Callahan made crumbled like sand between fingers. He insisted files were missing, yet every file was accounted for. He swore she had altered evidence, but chain of custody documents told another story. He pointed fingers, his face red with rage, but each desperate claim only revealed more cracks. The jurors who had gasped in shock now narrowed their eyes. The lawyers who had once bristled under Maya's rulings now stood taller, sensing something more sinister was at play. Even the reporters, hungry for scandal, began scribbling a new headline, not of a corrupt judge, but of an officer unraveling. Maya remained calm. Her voice didn't tremble. Her gavel struck with measured rhythm, keeping the courtroom from descending into chaos. But inside, she felt the weight of centuries pressing down on her. She knew what it meant to be accused, while black, especially in a robe meant to symbolize justice. The humiliation wasn't just professional, it was personal. This was every slur, every doubt, every shadow of suspicion cast on her life, condensed into one moment of public assault. And yet, she stood. Piece by piece, the truth revealed itself. Callahan wasn't exposing corruption. He was hiding his own. Evidence showed he had tampered with files, manipulated reports, even attempted to plant doubt in the chain of custody long before trial. What he accused Maya of, he himself had done. The silence in the courtroom became deafening. Spectators turned, whispers spreading like wildfire. The jury leaned back in disbelief. The very system Callahan believed would shield him was now turning against him. And then came the moment. The bailiff approached. The officer who once thundered accusations was placed in handcuffs. The same hands that had pointed at Maya were now bound behind his back. The same voice that had boomed with false charges was drowned out by the reading of his rights. Judge Maya Richardson did not smile. She did not gloat. She knew this was not victory. It was survival. She struck her gavel one final time, not to silence the room, but to declare that justice had not been broken. And in that moment, she became more than a judge. She became a symbol. For every young black student told they would never rise, for every woman doubted, every voice silenced, every person humiliated under the weight of prejudice. Her presence that day was proof that lies may roar, but truth will always outlast them. The courtroom emptied slowly. Reporters rushed to file their stories. Jurors left whispering to one another. Lawyers shook their heads in disbelief. Outside, the story spread like wildfire. A police officer, undone by his own corruption. A judge, standing tall against humiliation. A system, briefly, revealing its cracks. And when Maya returned to her chambers, robe still heavy on her shoulders, she sat for a long moment in silence. She thought of her mother, who had worked nights so she could study. She thought of her father, whose hands had bled carrying crates so she could carry books. She thought of the children in neighborhoods like hers, watching the news, seeing her stand tall, and she knew this was bigger than her. And as this story closes, I want you to remember this. They will try to strip you of your dignity. They will point fingers. They will throw accusations. They will try to shatter your name. But remember, Judge Maya, remember that silence fuels injustice, and standing firm, even in the eye of humiliation, can shift the weight of an entire room. So if this story moved you, smash that subscribe button right now, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and join us for more stories that uncover truth, challenge injustice, and remind us of the power of resilience. Because on this channel, we don't just tell stories, we build voices, we fight erasure, we remember that justice may be delayed, but it will never, ever be denied. Until next time, stand tall, speak loud, and come back for the next story.